So we are in the meat of the course now, talking about the types of articles that you would likely write should you become a journalist. Obituaries, that's a big one that people get their start in. You know, sometimes they will have you do that as the junior reporter. The one I want to talk to you about today will be covering accidents and disasters. And if we get to it, we'll also talk about covering crime and fires. Okay, so all of these things could be summed up as spot news. All right. Spot news. All right, so this is a story in which news is sudden and quickly breaking. This is a type of story where news is sudden and quickly breaking. It could be ongoing, like there's a hostage situation at a house. It could be something you arrive as the fire is still going. Or it could be something that just happened. The reporter does not usually witness it firsthand. That could happen, but the reporter could arrive with it going on in process, like a hostage situation. But the reporter does not usually become an eyewitness. Nevertheless, it's a good idea, though, to always have a reporter's notebook and some sort of camera, maybe your cell phone, because you never know when news could break out. So, in fact, you know, we're going to be doing a spot news article, and I hope that something happens within the next couple weeks here that we can write an article on. So I don't know, but news is happening all the time. So if some news suddenly starts to happen, take notes, right? Because you could be somewhere and the news is starting to happen. Okay. So the type of news we're talking about, like I just mentioned, would be things like accidents, so car accidents, a train accident, lots of different accidents. Disasters, so big snowstorm on the East Coast right now. Okay, so disaster, natural disaster would be one. Obviously crime would be a big one, right? So things that kind of unfold unexpectedly are often in this category. Fires. Okay, now the book also contains things like courts, covering courts, but that's probably not. You could argue that is part of spot news, but we're not going to talk about that right now. Okay, now there could be some upbeat news. I'd say rarely, but it could be upbeat. For instance, let's say that somebody went into the biology, the life sciences building, and there are all these frogs there waiting to be dissected, all these live frogs, and they release all the frogs. So there's frogs all over campus. You know, that would kind of be a funny little thing that would happen maybe, right? And so that could be breaking news. A teacher goes into labor during class. Okay, that might be breaking news. That might be spot news. Okay. Things like that happen, you know. Right, and then remember the time I gave the example of there's a snowstorm and we all have to stay here overnight, right? Right, Devin? What did you think about that? That's kind of upbeat because it becomes kind of a survival story of people coming together, right? Bonding, and they get to know each other or they hang out.
Starving to each other.
That could be too. Okay, now sometimes, you know, when we think of most of this stuff, we think of on the local or regional level, I would say. And this might be news, not always, but it might be news worth breaking into programming for. Okay, so you're watching a TV show and all of a sudden they either scroll something along the bottom, which they did. I remember I was watching TV and they scrolled Princess Di's death. Diana, they scrolled down along the bottom. But other times they would actually break into programming. Can you think of an example of that? Something that's important enough, it's breaking, they would break into programming. Maybe something local or regional?
Well, I guess it's local or regional.
Okay, it could be national.
But it was that when the pregnancy case, and like the Supreme Court decision.
Oh, okay, when the Supreme Court, so yeah, you're right. So courts can be, especially at Supreme Court level, a great U.S. Supreme Court decision is released. Okay, they would break into programming and then there were riots. Or that wasn't Supreme Court, was it? That was it's a grand jury.
Grand jury.
So, but that could be true though. Okay, so along those lines. When I was living in Pennsylvania, there was a disaster with a mine collapsing, and it was 9 miners were trapped, and they were all found alive, and that they broke into programming and showed that, them bringing up the miners.
When you say like broke into program, does that mean like they're stopped what they're showing to show this?
Yes.
Okay, so like 9/11 was?
Yeah, definitely
Okay.
9/11,
Okay.
and that was around the
So-
clock.
Okay, so they had
coverage.
a program and then they interrupted it? Okay.
Yeah, so 9/11 would definitely be an example. But this is relatively rare, and it's sort of a news judgment call, right? Think about Princess Diana. I mean, why didn't they go into video and why didn't they break fully into programming for that, do you think? Could it be that that's not a type of prominence that serious journalists cover? Because she wasn't a head of state, not really. She wasn't even technically a princess anymore. They had stripped that title. So does she have any political significance to us other than just kind of sentimental? No. So she's not, just not the president getting shot. So that would be a decision that your newsroom would, probably jointly decide. Are we breaking a program for this? Well, they might be mocked if they did that, because she's not, this is basically a celebrity, right? So when Robin Williams died, terrible event, break into programming, probably not. Right, because it's not something we have to know right now. It's something we have to know right now, and we have video cameras already there. They might break into programming for it. Okay, so these are good things to keep in mind. Okay, so now let's imagine that you are a reporter, and you find out that the local bank has just been robbed. Maybe this credit union here on campus, because there have been some the credit union has been robbed in different locations. Maybe it's on campus here, and you arrive. You don't know anything that's happened though, because let's say you weren't even supposed to work that day, and get over to the credit union. You're on campus, and so you do, right? What are some of the things you're gonna do once you get there? Because it just happened. So there are people kind of milling around. Kris is there. He might be available. What at a law enforcement capacity? What are you going to do as a reporter? Alex, let me ask you this. What are you going to do? You were told to go cover this bank robbery. You arrive. It just happened. What's the first thing you're going to do?
Take up some footage for maybe interview some people.
Okay, interview some people. Good. Okay, that's true, because they're going to leave, right? The people are going to leave. So you need to you may even have to ask, could you stay a moment while I interview him? Because you want to make sure they stick around, and you want to be bold, okay? These might be total strangers. You have your notebook already because you carry it everywhere, remember? And you want to start getting quotes from them and information, the facts about what happened, right? So the best way to think about this is just to think about the 5 W's and the 1 H, right? So when you arrive at a scene, in terms of the what, should be pretty obvious. We need to get a description of what exactly happened. Okay, so you need the description of the events. You need to get the story, right? Is the robber still at large? I mean, that's a big one, right? What would be some of the other questions you would ask? What do you think, Michael?
About the robbers would ask.
Well, no, you are the reporter.
Yeah.
You arrived, bank robbery's already happened, right? What do you need to find out?
What went on? I mean, what exactly? What happened? Like the amount of how much money was stolen?
Okay, how much money was stolen? Good. What exactly went on there? That's right. And what more specifically? What are some of the other questions? What do you think, Kris?
What?
Did you get a description of the robber, and did he have a firearm?
Okay, yes, big one. How did he have something, he or she? Maybe it's a she. Did the person have some sort of weapon? right? Was it, what did the person say they had a weapon, but you didn't see the weapon? That would be important, right? Because, you know, then it becomes a next level of crime, right? If the weapon is brandished and that sort of thing. But it turns out it was a soap gun or something, right? Or a toy gun.
Really, I mean, you rob a bank, it's just a bad deal all around.
It's a bad deal all around.
I mean, because once you rob a bank, it's federal charges. So.
All right, so once you rob a bank, it's federal charges. You remember that, so you will avoid that? Okay, so a description. All right, so you need to get as much detail as you can. Now, depending on the person, you know, you have to think fast. You're thinking fast as this is happening because this is unfolding. The people are going to leave. Right, guys? Darren? The people are going to leave. So let's say you have you have a student who was just standing there. That she saw the whole thing. All right, are you going to ask, what are the charges going to be in this? You know, are you going to ask the things maybe you would ask Kris to that student? No, instead you're going to ask her what?
When I asked her, like, what she was feeling, like, anxiety.
Okay, get her feeling, especially if you're doing a news, we'll talk more about that next time, a news TV broadcast. Get reactions. Good. Reactions. So if she's an eyewitness, let's get some reactions to that. All right, and you can almost predict what people will say, which is unfortunate, but we definitely want to get some reactions. Okay. But if you do have Kris there, what are you going to ask him? Kind of already alluded to that. But what will the charges be? Are there what exact offenses have been, you know, is the person charged with? Are they in custody? Right? Can you interview the person? I mean, that's unusual. You might be yelling questions at him, right? You might not get to do that. And he might say, I won't talk to you until, you know, I see my lawyer. But even that can be useful in an article. Okay? And then also, was anybody injured? Okay? Maybe there were shots fired. All right? That's a big one. You want to make sure to find out these things. Okay, and then what the extent of the injuries would be. Okay, so that's the what. That is the what. Up here, we also want to think about the who. The who. Okay, there are 3, possibly 4 important people you would need to talk to. Okay, the 4th you usually don't get, but they're the top 3 sources, especially in crime reporting. Maybe 4, but you usually don't get the 4th one. Obviously, it'd be great to get the suspect. What? Yes, it'd be great to get the suspect, and we're very careful with the word criminal or perp or all these things, as I think we've talked about before, because there's no trial yet, right? You're not the one deciding. But sometimes they'll plead guilty, and then let it loose. Still be respectful, but for now it's the suspect, right, or the person charged, or something like this. Okay, so it's very unlikely you're going to get that person. But knowing what we've just discussed, what are the top 3 sources in like a crime situation? What are the top 3? What do you think, Carly? We just talked about a few of them. Okay, so the victim, yes. So if it's a bank robbery, it would be the tellers. You know, they would have. I actually had a friend who worked at a bank, and she was robbed. You know, while she was working, and they pulled this certain money. It had a word for, a phrase for it, and when there was a silent alarm that went off just this one side of the drawer. If you pull that money, that silent alarm went off somewhere. Creepy. Anyway, it's good to know too. Good to know. So the victim, you want to try to interview the victim, right? That is definitely one. Who else? Witnesses, exactly. So eyewitnesses, and we kind of covered that with getting reactions, right? All these people, you want to ask them to say their name and spell it, whether you're doing video or writing it out, right? Have them say their name and spell it for you, and try to get contact info so you can maybe follow up with them.